last part. Now, I think we have a choice here at this particular time of going, whether we go with the subconscious or the unconscious, if you like, emotions. In Christine's case, we went to the unconscious. So we went straight to the orbital frontal. We found that the subconscious didn't show up, but it could show up after we dealt with her frontal ones, okay? So we don't know yet, until we've done that, whether the subconscious will then show. It may not. In another person, they may come in, you've done right to there, and then they show positive on the subconscious. So I want really somebody who possibly got a mixed dominancy, and I suspect Anthony has. So if you'd like to come out, Anthony, if that's all right. So I suspect. I was about to put the vial on top of the machine there, and I realised don't do that. Okay, because these are simulated copies. The frequencies, keep them away from electrical equipment. Don't put your test kit near anything that's got an electromagnetic field, because it might wipe them clean. So not just a magnet, but an electromagnetic field. So just don't put them on other electrical equipment or near a computer or anything like that. Well, no, because what? Printers, yeah, same thing, yeah. Don't stick them on a printer. It might be all right, might not, but if your kit suddenly starts not to work, it's probably because you've antidoted it.
How long is the field that you sort of have to distance?
I would go for a meter.
Okay.
Yeah. So the two things, if you remember, that you definitely need to order, because we don't have enough of them here, if you haven't got them, is formic acid, because that's going to show you if the oil, whichever oil you use yourself, if you want to test whether your butter has gone rancid, put the butter on to somebody else, okay? And if they don't weaken on either leg, then put the formic acid on, okay? And if they then weaken, then you know the butter's gone rancid. So just try it with oils around. Try it particularly with anything. Flour, you can do the same thing with flour. If flour doesn't weaken, try the rancid one and you'll find it's all rancid. Try it with fish oil, any oil, test it. That's why we suggest, with most people, they're not going to last more than a month with a bottle of oil. Anybody who can make a bottle of oil, of our oil at 200, is it 200 or 250? 250 lasts more than a month, isn't taking enough. They're just not getting enough of the parent oils, the omega-3s, omega-6 oils enough. So if you had 2 spoons, it would just about last a month, I think. Okay? If you have 4 spoons or 6 spoons, as some people do, you're going to get through it much quicker, but they're going to get superb results. But if you leave the top off that oil, or you keep doing it for months after months, I used to take it out the bottle, test the patient with the number of, and then pour it back into her. I thought, I'm not going to waste that down the sink. And I did, and in the end I thought, this doesn't smell right. After 6 months, 9 months of using the same oil, of course I was falling for my own trap. And I thought, this has gone rancid. I realise now why nobody's strengthening to it. It's not working. So, and I started looking into rancid oils, what exactly a rancid oil is. It's very interesting. So we're going to spend a lot of time looking at rancid oils, trans fats, and hydrogenated oils, because there's 3 different aspects of problems in the annual update, okay? And then we'll spend a good bit of time for you on the cardiac side, and that will be very exciting, because remember that 80% of physicians, that includes you, will get and probably die of heart disease if you don't get done by something else, like cancer. But we dealt with cancer in the last module, so you shouldn't get that. Okay. So this module, if you like, on the cardiovascular, will be mainly for the red people, okay? So we've done the blues, we'll do the reds, okay? So the cardiovascular is really, really good, because you will be able to, at the end of the session there, I promise you to be able to predict a coronary thrombosis. Or not predict it, as the case may be. But we'll look at heart failure, we'll look at arrhythmias, we'll look at coronary thrombosis, we'll look at every combination of heart problems, aneurysms and so on.
Chris, are you saying then that more physicians are red people?
Are there more physicians red people?
Why is it 80% of physicians as opposed to everyone?
It's just a statistic, isn't it? When you looked at that from the Daily Mail last week, I think it was 1.5 million people in this country of a population of 60 million, 1.5 million have had a heart attack. have had one. Luckily they survived. What about the ones who didn't survive? Because the heart attack is something, usually, and this is the big one that you hear about, although I must admit you don't hear it quite so much now. They seem to have gone less popular, heart attacks. What? It's other diseases coming up. But the reason you hear diabetes of heart attacks is because people drop dead. You know, that's it. Some get a second attack, third attack, and some do something about it, and some don't. And then, you know, when the second one comes or the third one, you know, then nobody understands, but they've already had all the warnings. But you want to know where you are, okay, with this. And it's not going to be difficult to know where you are, of whether you're going to have a coronary or not, and what you're going to do to prevent it. Okay, it's a very easy measurement. And it's just a matter of listening to the heart and seeing it, you know, measuring out the lub-dub, the beats, the distance between them. Okay. So, Anthony. So, is he red, is he green, is he blue? He tells me he's 5'7", was it, Anthony?
Yes, it was 5'7".
It was 5'7", okay. So when you do the red colour, it probably doesn't matter too much which leg we use first of all. So remember, starting from scratch, we tap the reflex. Okay, nothing. Do you note that? You see that? Let's tap his reflex again. He weakens on that side. On this one, tap the reflex, nothing. He's strong, isn't he? Okay, so that's wrong. So we're getting now to therapy localise the top of his neck. So he's going straight onto his atlas. Just tuck your chin in.
Yeah.
Tuck the chin in a bit, that's it. Okay, and then we do this again. And hey presto, the reflex comes back. Okay, so he's got a problem with the atlas. So what are we going to do there? So we need a mirror-on torch. We've got a mirror-on torch for me. So what are we going to do? We could crack his neck up. Yes. So we could manipulate his neck. We could do a release technique, resist, therapy localization, all sorts of things. But the mirror-on is a quick way of doing it, and certainly it will help us get us on our way. All right. So back onto your atlas. Okay. You saw that the reflex didn't work there. We used the mirror-on light. You can see the beautiful mirror-on light in there. You've all seen it anyway. Into the tummy button. Why the tummy button? Because that's called the shrine of God, where chi or life energy goes in, not just when you're a baby, but all your life. Alternatively, you can put it here over colloquially called the third eye or the pineal point between the eyebrows there. So we're going to give him a minute of that while he therapy localizes his atlas. So the therapy localization to the atlas is the reference point. Okay. So in reference to your atlas, let's see how you like mirror-on light. Somebody asked me during the week whether you could use this on a leg ulcer. So I said, well, you try it, because I think it's a healing light, and probably again 1 minute regularly will certainly help. So
Well, something happened because breath changed.
your breath has changed, yes. And that, what that does is release when our atlas will cause constriction on the vagus nerve. So we'll know because we will have restored the reflex. If the reflex comes back, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Just a couple more seconds. You can't overdose on this, but on the other hand, you can underdose. So if you don't do it long enough, and sometimes that's a good idea, what you're doing is moving the head while you're actually doing it. Okay? So let's see if we've done that. So, okay, let's put that on that there. So let's tap his reflex, pull. Good. Okay, so we're away. Now, why was that important? In other words, when you tap the reflex, it'll be a local neurological loop round there, and there, but they'll also be up to here as far as the sensory cortex and the motor back. So it means there's a block somewhere. So we start from the top. We always start from the top because there's more mechanoreceptors at the top of the neck than the bottom, and so on. Okay? So now we go to the red. Pull, and he's strong to red. We'd be amazed if he weakened to the green, wouldn't we? So that really only leaves one left. So he weakens to the blue. Now, next thing is he blue-blue? Whoa. So let's see if we can get it to balance. That's it. So now, he doesn't weaken to blue on the right eye. But he does weaken to blue on the left eye, okay? But he weakens to blue and no other colour, so he's a blue with the dominant blue being the left eye, okay? Now, most people's dominant eye is the right eye. So let's see what colour his right eye weakens to. Need some blue tack. Pull. Oh, heavens. He's weakening to green on the right eye. And not to red. So he's a real mess, isn't he?
Real mess.
Real mess, because he could be red. You know, with his height he could be red. Could be blue, but we don't know. So he's a bit of each, right? Now, the quick way here is to challenge simply his right greater wing of the sphenoid to the left. So the greater wing of the sphenoid is the easiest place to get to the amygdala. Okay? And then we take those away, and then we do the left to the right. So remember, you always compare one, the reference and the object planes of the hologram. So it's his left brain's in conflict with his right brain. Okay? And what we could do is give him the Miron therapy into the umbilicus. Okay? And that'll sort him out. Okay? Then we can move on. But we will never find out what the problem was. Okay? Now the problem with him is that he's had a lot going on in his mind which has changed his biochemistry. At this stage we don't know what he's changed from, because he could be a red, which is what I suspect, or he could possibly be a blue, but he's certainly not a green. But he's having elements of a green in there on that right eye, which is his dominant eye. Okay, well, it's not your dominant. No, your left one is. So it's probably that he's more likely, his left is his dominant, that you're more likely to be a blue then, but he could be a red. He could change, he could have changed totally, you know, at this stage. This is why I chose him, okay? Now, if this is caused by emotional problems, subconscious emotions, he's programmed this in, okay? He's the one who's done it. Everything that's recorded and he's changed is because he's seen something, he's heard something, he's smelt something, he's tasted something, or he's touched something. So let's go back in reverse and find out what it is, this sensory input. So these are his inputs. I was asking in the break, with the TriCaster unit here, the recording, with all I can see all these plugs on the back here, you know, just what this machine can take inputs. And Gary said it can take 6 camera inputs, 8 camera inputs, computers, you name it. It can record 2 seminars at the same time. You know, it's fantastic, isn't it? And that's just what our brain does. It records information in the different inputs, and our inputs are our eyes, our nose, our senses. So what we're going to do is we're going to do exactly the same. Close your eyes and put the finger on the right eye to the left eye. Now put it on where we see. Don't stick it up in a corner somewhere. Put it basically where the person sees, so in the middle of the eye. So we're doing right to left, and then take them off, and then put left to right. So let's see if there's a problem with the visual inputs. No, not at the moment. Okay, so you can use the same finger in the right ear and in the left ear. Okay, take them out, and then do the left ear to the right ear. The patient soon gets what you're trying to do. Okay, now we're going to do touch. So you tickle yourself on this side, stay. Tickle yourself on that side, stay. Okay, don't take the hand off, otherwise you lose the reference. This is for touch. Tickle yourself on this side, stay. Tickle yourself on that side, stay. Okay, so he's all right there. So far the big 3. Okay, so we've got vision, hearing, touch are all okay. Now we go to the next finger, the middle finger. Why? Because we're going to go up his nostril. So we're going on the right to the left. Okay, so we're going to do smell. Okay, and then we're going to take them out and then put the left to the right. Good, he's got it. And then we're going to do the 4th finger. Okay, why? Because he's going to go on the tongue. And most patients don't want to put the finger they stuffed up their nose on the tongue. So stick your tongue out, right to left. So we're just going a different side there. Okay, and then we've only got one combination left, take them off. And now do left to right, left to right. So something has left a bad taste in his mouth. You know that expression? Something leaves a bad taste, and it's going round and round and round in there. So you stay there, and we're going to, instead of zapping the greater wings of the sphenoid as the reference, we're going to just do each one individually. So this works really well. Remember, he's got a program running, and his program that's running is left to right taste. So something, these are, usually, don't you talk while I'm doing this because you take your hand off. These are usually people who were fussy eaters. Sometimes they were force-fed, things that they didn't want to eat. And they created, things, sometimes fed things which they didn't want to eat, and were forced into it. And they did literally leave physical bad taste in the mouth, which goes on to leave bad taste in the mind, okay, when people react in the same way. We used to secretly be given stinging nettles by my mother. And we hated them. Or we said we hated them. And every time she went out of the dining room, we had a carpet which wasn't a fitted carpet in those days. They went under the carpet. So at the end of the season, when we used to change the carpet around, as people did in those days, turn it around, there were always these flattened vegetables underneath the carpet. And nettles have a very bitter taste. Now I realise how good they are. They're fantastic for you, lots of iron and other nutrients and things. So we should eat nettles really now, but that's many years later. Okay, I forgot to do the timing, so I think we're probably about there.
Yeah.
Okay, so just stay touching. So what we do now is we'll just test that he's okay there. Okay, right, all right. So we just go back to that left to right. Now if he goes weak on the left to right, we've got something else, haven't we? Okay, otherwise if he remains strong, we're there. So we go back now to the beginning. We've done the 5. We don't need to do the taste again because we're done, all right? So we're going to do eyes. Although I have to admit, Jill's had 1 or 2 patients who've been left to right and then gone right to left in the same one, but only when you do them individually to begin with. And sometimes you get a left-right eye and then a right-left conflict with the ears. And you can imagine this is a kid who's trying to learn. What's going on in that brain, when they're just receiving information and having a conflict. So right to left ear, take them out, left to right ear, and we've got him. It's something he's been listening to. Bad news. Been listening to it. So we now zap his ears. And we'll do the time this time. So with the subconscious, we've written the program. It's something we've seen, something we've heard, something we've tasted, something we've touched and smelt. And this is with him. It's something he's tasted, and it's something he's hearing or has heard. This could go back, remember, to pre-birth. In utero, it could go back any time, especially most of it is in those formative years before age 12. So you may never be able to remember what it was that's triggered the event off in the first place. It's subconscious, it's a program. So remember that program is running. It's not, there's nobody in there. When that little voice talks to you and flicks you from one thing to another and you think, oh, why am I thinking about it? You're separate from that person. You're sitting there thinking, who the devil is that? There's another person in there just chatting away, thinking zoom, 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 zoom. You're not consciously doing it, it's occurring. There is nobody in there, okay? This is why it's a recording. So what you've got to do is wipe it, okay? And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to see where the conflict is and harmonize it. Now he may be okay in a moment, and next time he comes, he may show the other things up. He may show his vision and the smell, or he may not. May not be an issue. Or you may need to go through all 5. We've had some patients, you've had to do all 5. But most people it's only 1 or 2. Okay, that's good. So back to the greater wings of the sphenoid, left to right. Okay, so now he's strong. So we don't need to do any more with him at the moment, okay, than that. So we fixed his subconscious by working through, is it eyes, ears, nose, mouth, all right? So he was weak here and here. He came right in at the beginning, so we treated him right in at the beginning. But we didn't treat him and tell him that too much. We talked to him about his putting it in. Paul? Now, this is the interesting side effect, isn't it? What he really is, okay? So for the first time in a long time, he's who he really is. And who he really is a red, okay? Remember, he was green, or he's blue to both. Poor Anthony hasn't been himself for a long time. You know that feeling you haven't been yourself? He's right, he hasn't been himself. He's been telling people I don't feel myself. So now we can go in. Okay, so which brain do you think he's not working in? I won't tell you what her face looks like at the moment. Right, which brain? Fatima, which do you think? You've got two to think about. Which brain? The left you don't think is working. Okay, so we'll start on this with the humming. So hum. You're right. Okay. He doesn't weaken to the right, so it must be the left. Okay, right. 100 minus 3s?
197, 93, 99.
Okay, 99. Now you're going to 97, 95, 99. You should, don't judge the person. You know, don't say, no, it was 88 or something. You know, they feel bad and they'll be more frightened next time. And if they stay strong, I always say, you've passed your exam. Okay, then it must be the other one. So with him, he would treat the left brain first, okay? Then we would discover what comes out in the right brain, all right? So with Christine, it was different. She didn't show the subconscious first of all. She showed we call it the unconscious, okay? You know, was that part, emotional stress. Okay, so that's all we need to do with him. We could spend a lot of time, and he could write the program, he could tap to find out what negates that. But what is more effective is to say, well, what's he put in there? How's he put it in? And let's harmonize it, okay? So we talk about it, and I just make a bit of an issue, make a bit of a joke of it, about the tasting. You know, can you remember whether you were a fussy eater?
I had lots of foods that didn't agree.
Yes.
When young,
He
I didn't know at that time.
He says he had lots of foods that he didn't agree with, or he didn't want them to agree to. You know, I don't know.
Well, whatever.
But he now knows that now. So often they were fussy eaters, but they're better now, you find. But they're better now because they just don't know to eat those foods. They've learned to avoid them. Why put yourself through the misery of something that you don't like, and it doesn't obviously like you either? But mums will force food in, you know. And this is the trouble. It builds up neurological conflict in there related to taste, okay? And it leaves a bad taste, as I say, in the mouth and then in the mind. And what about the hearing? Is there something that he's heard, but he may never remember this? You know, a conflict.
A lot of things, you know, I mean, for example, primary school was pretty nasty.
Primary school was pretty nasty. Yeah. Teachers were quite ferocious in those days, particularly your primary ones. Yeah, I can remember myself. Yeah. They were still our corporate punishment.
Yeah.
And you can imagine Anthony being a real naughty boy at school. Mischievous, and even now he's mischievous, yeah. So how many times did you have the cane then?
Well, you didn't have too much cane, but
You didn't have too.
loss. I mean, there was quite a bit of sort of ticking off and
Ticking off, yeah. Oh, you never really until you've had the cane.
yeah. Well, they didn't use so much cane at that
Yeah.
time, but you know, it was bad enough.
Yeah. The grammar school I went to, our headmaster was a pacifist, but boy, he was ferocious with the cane. He was a pacifist. Right, okay. Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Right, so
How did they expect people to learn? Little ones to learn.
When they treat you like that.
well, they force it in. You know, you will learn. I gave up the piano because the piano teacher used to rap us across the knuckles with a ruler. You know, if you got the note wrong. Nothing puts you off playing the piano for life after that. You know, that's... But no, corporal punishment was very, very popular in the 50s and 60s. Yeah. And they thought nothing about whacking a boy around the ear, you know. You imagine that now, you know, you'd probably sue them or something, or because you probably could deafen a child whacking them on the ear. But we used to have a ruler or anything. So let's come back, let's just run through this with subconscious emotions. Okay, so the one I prefer is to the therapy localization to the amygdala. You can do just looking with the eyes down, accessing the Bruce Lipton one of just accessing by bringing the eyes down as another eye position. It accesses the deeper parts, in other words, the subconscious. Bruce Lipton talks a lot about that as, you know, doing an access of the subconscious with the eyes down. But I think I prefer this one and get it in, you know, nice and easy. You can verify it with the eyes down as well. So amygdala therapy localization, and Dr. Goodhart there, greater wings of the sphenoid. Remember, you're going to go right to left and left to right. Okay? Most times the conflict is left to right, whatever that means. I don't know whether that means the left brain's fighting the right, or the right is fighting because of decussation and so on. I don't think it's as easy to actually know that. And it doesn't matter. All you've got to do is change the person from strength to weakness, which you know is something that's bad, and then you find the thing that is good for them. Okay? So you could go around and find the beginning and ending point that negated that, and then use the tapping and so on. So there's different ways of doing it, but this is, I think, the quickest and easiest way. Because remember, there's nothing in there. Okay, this is not a person in there who's got a problem. Christine's got a problem. She's got her conflict going on in her thinking part. If you've got the conflict like Anthony, it's in the past, it's not the present. Okay, so that's good. So these are the points which we've already talked about. And there are, I went through a lot of positive statements you can use for subconscious emotions, again to try and sort of bring out those positivities in people. You don't put a negative one in. If you're going to rewrite the book, you don't say, my guilt and blame, you bring out the opposite to the guilt and blame, which is I'm released from my guilt and blame. So I truly am released. If you've got somebody with a gallbladder, you need to write the program with the I truly am released. I don't actually do that very much with people now because I find the zapping does it much quicker and easier because you're looking at something which is in the past. So if you want to, then you use positive affirmations. And, if you've got a person with a gallbladder, you find the meridian which negates that. That's the one you tap. You don't tap the one that weakens, you tap the one that strengthens. So in your case, we'll find out which is the one that strengthens. Yeah. Okay, so you can do that. So it's the same emotions, whether they're conscious or we just divide them up the same way as David Hawkins did. So at this point, we're looking at the negative emotions from the liver downwards there. And then we come into the better emotions before we get to 540, the magic number. So we have spleen and stomach, which is related to histamine. We have heart and small intestine, which is noradrenaline. And we have circulation, sex, and triple warmer, which is the excitatory ones. So you have these good, emotions of hyper and hypostate. Agitation with lethargy, tension with being lazy, and manic with being aimless. Yeah.
Resentment, what is that in there? What part would be the liver? Resentment?
Is what?
Resentment.
Resentment.
Yeah.
Resentment is definitely pride. Yeah, that was a liver one. Yes, that will come up with the liver. Yeah. So subconscious emotion, when there's a yin as a causal meridian, the answer will be a yang, and when it's a yang, the answer will be a yin. Okay. So whichever is the bad meridian, okay, when you come to it, the answer will always be the opposite. Okay. So it's always to create harmony between the two. So you just find that with a subconscious emotion, you'll find if it's a yin, the answer will be a yang meridian. But if you do the other one with the Miron light, you won't actually have to do that. So things that can overwrite or help a person with a subconscious emotion program running is an affirmation, which we looked at there, is the tapping. And you tap the meridian that negates, okay? And you tap it about 60 times while you say the affirmation, I truly am released. Okay, so you're tapping that. Flower essences are very good here. Tree essences. There's lots of different companies that sell flower essences now, not just the batch ones, but many, many different ones. We've looked at tree leaves and essences. The reason for that is that tree leaves move around with the sun and capture the energy of the sun into that particular leaf. And at the end of the day, that's who we are really, isn't it? We're a bit of energy. And where's that energy come from? And the answer is the sun. And how are we built, that we see we are? We're made from leaves. We're actually plant eaters, aren't we? So if we eat the animal, the animal is eating the plants. So we're actually eating second-hand grass and leaves, really. So if you eat beef, you're not actually eating meat, you're eating meat, but it's the grass that the cow has eaten. So you go back into the end, the leaf is the major source, and that leaf can create all sorts of complicated chemicals from the sunshine through the chlorophyll. So as the sunshine hits the chlorophyll, it then converts the carbon dioxide and water in there magically like a superconductor into carbohydrates, and then the plant can make those to make proteins and other things, and then along comes the beast and eats the weeds and the flowers and the greens, and then it makes proteins itself. So in the end of the day, the leaf of the tree is very good, and it absorbs the different lights and holds it. So tree essences are very good. Culinary herbals are very useful to adapt the hypothalamic changes. Colour therapy, again, because there's a colour associated with each meridian. So we said this morning, the meridians in the end are only energy, and we can measure energy as light or frequencies and as wavelengths, which is how we measure colour. And we can measure it as a frequency, so music is very therapeutic, good music. So we're all going to listen tonight to the Stones. So you get some good music at Stonehenge. Not at Stonehenge. Glastonbury, that's the place. Okay. I hope they're going to play. Are they going to put it on telly tonight? I think it would be on telly, won't it? Yes, it would be fantastic, I think. Yes. And they're putting an opposition in, amazing, of a group who are playing all the Beatles, aren't they? At another end of Glastonbury, in the same festival, with the Stones at one end and the Beatles group at the other. So music therapy would be good. Deep massage, very good, relieving, increasing the endorphins and things. And if the worst comes to the worst, hypnosis. Not because I'm against hypnosis, but you can rewrite the program by putting new information into the subconscious under hypnosis. But I wouldn't, unless you're into hypnotherapy, that wouldn't be the first one I would choose. So right now, yes, we'll do those. We've talked about those. Tapping, we've talked about tapping at 2 hertz, that's twice a second, the negating meridian beginning and ending point, while the patient vocalizes the affirmation. Fluorescences, batch, bush remedies in Australia, Californian ones in California and around, Findhorn remedies, Scotland, orchid essences from South America, and petit feu from France, okay, and probably all sorts of other ones. Tree essences, these are the common trees which we found were very good for the different meridians, and we got all ours from the champion trees in Kew Gardens. Worth the visit there. Culinary herbal tinctures. Again, the herbs were very important in the past, not just for flavour and for medicinal purposes, but they actually had healing properties in the mind as well. So they help lift depression and mood. Sage is not called sage for nothing. It's because it helps people with their mood very much. And we found they were fabulous adaptogens for the hypothalamic hormones. So biochemically, it helps people when their hormones are adapted to their mood changes. So if you stop the actual biochemical change, the hormonal change, or adapt it, well, every time they think about a stressful situation and it doesn't create a stressful reaction in the body, they're more likely to rewrite the program. Okay, so if you, every time you experience something which causes you stress, and you start to sweat or get angry there, and then you take the herb and you find it doesn't do that, and then you rewrite the program. You say, well, that doesn't worry me anymore, and you can get over it. So herbs, and these are just the 12 culinary herbs that we found, very effective, more than almost anything else, at helping people adapt. So these hypothalamic modulators, all these hormones, the corticotropic releasing hormone, luteinizing hormone, etc., can go up or down, depending upon the adaptation. So the main herbs will be basil, coriander, dill, marjoram, oregano, rosemary, sage, and we've added a few in since the first ones, lemon balm, yarrow, and black walnut. So we found that those are very good for different purposes as well. Colour therapy, you would need a light box. I put the complementary colour there to green, which is the governor vessel one. So this would be to give the light of the frequency, the wavelength of the governor vessel. So each meridian has a colour. If you remember the pure colours of the Newton, of the prism of the rainbow, the pure ones, the 7 colours there, refer to the yang meridians. So the yang ones are the pure ones. You know that every colour has a complementary colour? It's like an equal and opposite in there. The complementary colours are the yin ones. So that way, if you used a light box, we could do you 14 acetates rather, or one for each meridian. So every meridian has a colour, and you use that colour to stimulate that meridian. Okay? So that's a good way. Patients love that. And what we used to do is we used to do that for 15 minutes on the light box while we played the music of a motto for the music therapy. No, you wouldn't use the Miron, you'd use an ordinary light box. If you use the Miron, use the Miron. You see, the miron is a combination, that violet flame light is a combination of the early part of the UV, which is beyond the human spectrum, and the early part of the infrared, which is beyond the human spectrum vision. Okay? So when you put light through that, you actually see that colour, and that colour doesn't exist because it's the connecting of the two parts of the rainbow. But it's the connection, which is the healing thing, which people search for thousands of years, called the violet flame. So if you look it up, you create it through the healing, through the harmony in your mind. Okay? So when you see that, and Sam was saying, once you've shown a person that, you can start to see it because you can now see what it is. And Sam said he can now do it and see it and meditate at a bus stop. I don't know, where were you catching a bus to? I thought you got a car, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easier not to take a car sometimes into London.
Oh, into London, yeah, I see. Okay, yes. So once you've seen the lights, okay, then you can visualize the light in your mind, and it's easier once you know what you're looking for. And the concentration of trying to see this light and let it come harmonizes the two brains while you're doing it.
At previous seminars where we've used the little square colours to get the primary meridian.
Yes, you can do that. All you're doing is using the squares instead of touching the beginning ending points. Same thing.
But if the primary meridian, will it be the yin or the yang, or is it just one or the other?
Well, it depends on which brain you're looking at, isn't it? You know, the yin goes with the left brain, the yang is always the right brain. Okay? That's something I don't think anybody's ever discovered before or put down, that yin and yang are just simply left and right brain activities. Okay? But don't think of them as physical locations. They're energy, right? So it's not as easy as saying, oh, this brain here only works, because this brain swaps over and is ipsilateral as well. So it runs systems in the body, and the right brain runs systems in the body. Okay? Okay, so you could use the light box. I personally don't do this anymore because I just use the miron because it only takes 1 minute. So it's like a super colour into the umbilicus, but you could put it into here, around what they call the pineal or the third eye position between the eyebrows. So Jill does that with her dog. So if a dog gets a bit, he gets a zapping, he gets it there. And when we treat the horses, we usually do it there. So, you know, if horses are agitated and you want to treat them, you do it there. Okay? But if you remember with Anthony, we put it in the umbilicus, but he therapy localized his physical lesion. And people often ask me that, you know, how do you treat if you don't want to manipulate or you've got somebody who's too acute? You can do that. So you can therapy localize, anywhere that therapy localizes, strong muscle goes weak, and then you zap it into the same way. So you're putting that healing energy in to encourage it. It may not make it feel better, but you can move on. It feels much more in harmony.
With the
Okay?
animal, do you hold the point?
Yes, somebody needs to therapy localize, while somebody needs to do that, especially if it's a horse. Big boys.
The horse can be.
Okay, so the horse can see. So colour therapy using a light box is good.